bringing carbon fiber paddles or a giant pool buoy are great conversation starters.
For triathletes, for sure. They'll sniff that carbon fiber out, and you're like, what are those? I've never seen this. You're like, they're carbon fiber paddles, and you can use them during the race, and you don't have to bring your bike.
Yeah.
That's the sales pitch right there. Carbon fiber paddles, no bike travel.
Works
Sold.
every time.
Sold. Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 127 as a show. On this episode, we are diving back into our Swimrun 101 series where we will be answering listeners' questions. We're calling this our mailbag episode.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, you know, we keep getting these questions over and over from people. We love answering them in the DMs and on emails, but we thought, hey, you know what? Why don't we put it on a podcast so that
we have a collection. We've amassed a collection now.
For sure. So we hope you enjoy this. Hopefully we're answering your question or it's a refresher of something that you've been thinking about. But yeah, that's what we're planning for this episode.
Yeah, and these are also questions that we see out and about on the internet, on the Odyssey Facebook page. We see kind of a lot of the same stuff. So we sort of collected a bunch of these and broke them into little categories, if you will, and we're going to take a stab at that. And then a good thing here, you'll want to definitely bring up the show notes because we're going to be referencing a lot of other episodes that we've talked about. And these are episodes maybe from a year or two ago from Gear Talk that we had earlier. So where we go into a lot more details on then what we're going to, instead of like basically gloss over some things.
We're just answering questions.
We're just
today.
answering questions here. But if you want to take a deep dive into Swimrun paddles for Swimrun, for example, we have a whole 45-hour long conversation on it. So
45 hours?
45 hours. It was a marathon. It was a podcast sit-in we had in the garage here at Studio G. So we don't have I was trying to think of good male-related songs. The only one I could think of is Elvis, Return to Sender, Address Unknown.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But we're not returning your question to a sender. We're answering it. But that's the only male song I could.
You know what song popped into my head was a Message in a Bottle.
Oh.
But that's not really mail. That's not registered mail. That's actually just littering.
That is.
Like hopeful littering, basically.
Yeah. Hopeful.
Yeah, because you're hoping someone gets the message in the bottle.
You actually would see that you have a potential at a swim run to run into a message in the bottle, potentially.
Yeah, you should probably just pick it up and read it later, though.
Yeah, but hopefully that bottle was collected during the pre-beach clean up the oceans.
Yeah.
So the message in the bottle is no more. We're dragging this on.
So, Chipper.
So,
wetsuits,
open up the mailbag.
Are wetsuits required at every swim run?
Well, we're going to answer this as a yes.
Yes.
So, Odyssey Swimrun, the largest swimrun race company in the United States here, does have a specific requirement saying that a wetsuit is mandatory equipment, and specifically it can't be a swim skin. So if you have like a swim skin from maybe a triathlon when the water was a little bit too hot, Odyssey specifically has called out that it must have neoprene and be a wetsuit.
Basically has to have some flotation and some thermal properties.
Yes. So, okay, we need a wetsuit. Now, Chris, do I need to go out and spend $600 on the latest and greatest Swimrun wetsuit?
No, you don't, Chipper.
Okay. What should I do?
Well, what you should do is, first of all, if this is your first swim run, you can see what you have around the house. If you have a whole triathlon wetsuit, you can cut it off at the knees and the arms, and see how that works for you. But there are a lot of inexpensive entry-level wetsuits that are amazing. So there's the Synergy Swimrun wetsuit, which is great, that we've reviewed. There's the Arc Sports Corp, of which there's a new edition that just was released a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And then there's opportunities to get used gear or borrow gear. You could always reach out to us, and if you're a men's medium or large,
medium tall potentially.
We could hook you up. I think I have like 2 wetsuits out right now.
Yeah, they're out. But yeah, all the suits that Chris mentioned, and then I'll throw on there the Blue 70 Alliance suit. Those are all what we're considering kind of entry level wetsuits around the $200 mark, and there's usually a coupon code floating around, so be sure to kind of keep an eye out for that. But there's 3 or 4 really great entry-level wetsuits that will work for you, no problem, for your first swim run.
Yep.
If you don't want to dip into the checking account, go rustle up your old triathlon wetsuit, take the scissors to it.
Yep. And also some races, I know Odyssey did this last year. I'm pretty sure they're doing this year.
Yeah.
I probably should have checked before we
They
started
are.
recording. But they have a rental program. So you want to try Swimrun, you got to get in there early because they don't have that many suits. But you can rent a wetsuit for the race to try it out.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing that their partnership with ARC. But they do sell out, to Chris's point, very early. So if you have if you're doing Mackinac or Texas or something, go in and register quick for that. We also have one of our gear review episodes and accompanying YouTube video, the Swimrun Wetsuit Suit Out. Pew pew, where we kind of break in all the I can't help it. Where we go and we kind of break down what you find in a entry level, kind of a mid level, and then the cream of the crop, sort of in terms of wetsuits.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have any other questions about gear, on our website, we have a whole bunch of resources. We have a gear guide that pretty much breaks down all the different aspects of the Swimrun kit. But a question we get a lot is, what paddles should I use? And if so, what's the consensus on size?
Yeah, this is a very common question, obviously. I think paddles do make you faster. They help you move more water backwards, thus then propelling you faster forward. And
helps overcome the drag that you have from swimming with shoes.
With shoes and everything. Great point. And potentially towing someone behind as well if you're doing with a partner.
A lot of drag if you're towing me.
Depends how effective your partner is at swimming in the rear. Our advice and what we've generally been told by people smarter than us, these are coaches, swim coaches, go with the paddle of the size that you can handle. So bigger is not better in the paddles game.
Right. If your technique is totally breaking down because the paddle is the size of your face, maybe you need a paddle that's smaller than your face.
Yeah, or you do 100 in the pool and your shoulders are smoked because you're having to work so hard because you got the big old trash cans on. Throw those things in the trash can and go with something smaller. I use a size medium paddle, and so does Chris.
Yeah.
We actually previously we started with a large paddle, and we actually went down to the medium through some testing that we did in the pool and just sort of how we felt. We actually are faster over longer periods of time with the smaller paddle. Like, we can manage that, and that feels like the right paddle size for us.
Definitely. Definitely. So in terms of types of paddles, there's a whole bunch. We're obviously super fans of Frank Paddle. We have a whole review online.
Those are carbon fiber
paddles. But pretty much any paddle, including like the $12 Synergy paddles, will be fine. The big thing is just to, make sure you're practicing with them.
Yes.
And not just showing up at the race with them, because it's not going to make for a fun experience.
Absolutely. That's obviously a great point. You should be using this when you're practicing your swims, or if you do any swim runs, be using those paddles. Chris, we're swimming 4 times a week now, and I think at least three times a week, the majority of our swims have paddle and buoy work. So just to give you a little bit of a consensus on how the frequency should be on that.
Yeah.
Additionally, we have a whole Gear Talk episode, again, linked in the show notes, paddles for Swimrun. And we got some input from Coach John Stevens, Purple Patch Fitness coach, stud swim runner in his own right, multi-Casco Bay champion, chimes in with us. And that's a conversation that we had with the Swimrun Labs, Annie and Brooke, on Gear Talk.
Yeah. So paddles, you should use them. Make sure they're sized appropriately. And practice with them, I think, would be the short way of...
Yeah, and also think where you're going to put them, which sort of segues us right into the next question.
Yeah. Well,
Chris,
this is kind of a combo question.
It is a combo question.
So I think first of all is undergarments in general in Swimrun, and then underwear in particular. So that's a question that we've gotten a lot, and I'd like to think of myself as sort of the cult leader on this and converting people.
I'll give you that. That is a title you've earned.
So the Swimrun Labs, I think the Dorkables, I think Chipper. We all go sans undies.
Yes.
Because
in the nude.
Yeah, because the wetsuit kind of does the thing.
Yeah, so the compression bit of the wetsuit basically it does its job.
Yeah.
From our personal experience.
It's never been a problem. There's never been some embarrassment from a tear or anything like that.
I will say our friend Sabi got bit by a dog and it actually ripped her suit out. She didn't have
it was on the side though.
It was on the side. It was like a hip flank situation, so she didn't have a wardrobe malfunction. But I've yet to hear of anybody having a wardrobe malfunction that they were having an exposure.
I'm pretty sure we'd hear about it.
We would have heard about it. If anyone's going to tell anybody, they're going to tell the Low Tide Boys.
So that's the underwear answer. We've gotten that multiple times, so we just want to address that. But I think more generally, undergarments in general is the question we get a lot. Like, oh, where do you put your stuff? Like all this. So.
Yeah. Before we move on to that, I will say if you're not into the idea of going totally in the buff under your stuff, I have worn previously just like compression Under Armour, compression underwear essentially, and Annie and Brooke have told us that, and other women just wear kind of their favorite swimsuit.
Yeah.
If bottoms and whatever top you're going to use. So just sort of something compression, something that's not going to hold water. Obviously, you wouldn't want to get like, your Hanes briefs that are your white Hanes briefs that are cotton. Those
tidy whities. They still make those?
I guess
they probably still make them.
No tidy whities. It's a bad idea for Swimrun.
Plus, they bunch up.
They do, yeah. Looks like, you got a diaper or something back there. Anyway, but yes, what else do you wear under your suit? So Chris and I both love the Arc Kangaroo top. And what it is, it's a sleeveless compression top that has multiple compartments on kind of the chest and then on the stomach area, kind of across your core. And
one on the lower back as well.
Oh yeah, one on the backside. That's a good call. And that one in particular does have a cover over it. And those are, I stuff my paddles in there. You can put gels in there. If you have a soft flask, you put that. You can do whatever you want and put it in these tops.
Yeah, as you may know with Swimrun, you got to carry everything in and out. You can't litter. So if you're going to have gels with you and nutrition or what have you, you need to have a place to store it. So a lot of the newer suits have less and less pockets because I think it's the way the sport is evolving is to wear something underneath to store things. So you'll see that a lot of suits maybe have one zippered pocket or a fold-over pocket in the back. Some of them have them in legs or internal pockets. But in general, you want to be thinking about where you're going to keep your shit.
Absolutely. And now we're to the point now there's a few offerings that actually are kind of thermal tops. So if you're concerned, I know at Utila Uto was very chilly. So Arc has a thermal just released. We haven't got our hands on this one yet, but a thermal kangaroo top. And then Zone 3 also has a very thin thermal top as well that I know a lot of folks were using back in Swimrun North Carolina and Swimrun Lake James last year. So those are options that you have there. Got it. You got to figure something out to put your stuff in.
Right. And it's Swimrun, so it's kind of a Wild West on a lot of this stuff. So you should just figure out what you think is going to work for you, test it out, see what happens.
Yes. And for the ladies, there is Arc has the kind of the sleeveless shirt. And then they also just released a bra as well. That's a kangaroo bra. And I know the company NU Swimrun. They also have the Lapa bra and they have the Lapa shirt as well.
Yep.
So there's a couple different offerings out there for you to pick from if that's something that you want to do.
All right. So a question we get a lot is, do I need to use a pool buoy? Which our answer is yes.
We're huge fans.
And then the follow-up question is always, what size and what are our thoughts on Shin floats and stuff like that? So why don't you kick this off as to our pool buoy philosophy?
Yes. So pool buoys, again, similar method to the paddles. They definitely help you go faster swimming in the water. Don't forget, you have shoes on. You're potentially towing somebody else. You're swimming with shoes. So the pool buoy helps you kind of get your posture more taut and aligned in the water. Now, our philosophy with pool buoys is bigger is better.
Right.
or pull
Basically,
buoys.
like as big a
As
pull
big as
buoy
you
as you
can
can handle.
So they have, we're going to go back to the arc example here. They have they have a keel S for kind of small keel. They're quote unquote midline, and then they have the keel plus. So Chris and I race in the keel plus. That works for us, and I would say for most people, that would probably be a good choice. If you want something not so large, the keel's great. And you can't really go wrong with that. And if you want something and you're a little bit more petite, or you don't feel like you need a lot of flotation, they have the S, or you can rig up your own swim.
You could always take some pool buoys and use those, but I think what you'll find, the Swimrun specific pool buoys just have so much more flotation to really give you that body positioning in the water.
Yep.
And I think if you're like, I'm sold, I'm going to buy an arc, which one should I get? And you're sort of on the fence between getting a keel plus or regular keel. I think if you're, way over 150 pounds and, are taller than like 5'4" or something, you should probably go with the plus.
Yeah.
But you really can't go wrong with the regular keel. I mean, I've done 2-3 races with the regular keel.
I mean, it's a great pull
no
buoy.
problem. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
then
as far as Shin floaties, what do you think about those?
I actually have used those for the first time we did Casco Bay. It seemed, and at that time we didn't have the big Euro style pull buoy. We just had your traditional run the mill swim pull buoy. So it felt like it kind of helped. And I also had it thinking that, this will be also help extra protection for my shins and, rocks and scrapes and branches and all sorts of stuff. It'll be protective there. Now, as sort of our gear has evolved and we have the big super flotation Mondo Euro pull buoys, the Shin floats are pretty much negated.
Yeah.
There's almost no purpose on using them. They just sort of are kind of cumbersome. And you'll realize once you get a larger pull buoy that the Shin floats, less and less are you going to be trying to look for those and grab them on your next swim run session.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about socks in a minute, but just to sort of tee that up, instead of Shin floaties, we like wearing knee-high socks because it provides the same sort of protection element, a little bit of warmth, not too much.
Some compression as well.
Some compression, but yeah, we'll talk about socks in a little bit because probably one of the top two questions we get the second one's probably about socks, but the first one we get is always what shoes should I wear for swim run?
Yes. And the best place to start is your closet.
Yeah.
You don't have to overthink this one. I think this is a place where people get really, I mean, you understand why. I have to swim in my shoes and then run in them. I've never done that before, so there must be something very specific that I need to buy. And that isn't really the case to start out. So I'm looking over here, and we're lucky enough in the studio to have, 12 pairs of running shoes just staring at us. So all the swim run shoes that I use are also my trail running shoes. So whatever shoes you're going to use on the trails that have some lugs and some grip, it could be your Hokas, it could be your Solomons, it could be your Nikes. Just give those a try. Yeah,
you want them to have good drainage. You don't want anything Gore-Tex because Gore-Tex keeps water out, but if there's water in, it'll keep that in.
That's what you don't want.
So yeah, you would just want to make sure that, and again, like with anything we're saying, you got to test it and try it out. But if this is your first swim run, just find a trail shoes that you think are pretty breathable and will drain well, and give them a shot.
And here's a great little bucket test that we learned from our friends Annie and Brooke at the Swimrun Labs. Just get your 5-gallon bucket, fill it up with water, take your shoes in, dunk them in there for a couple minutes, take them out, take the water out, put them on, go run to the end of the block and back, and see how long until you feel the water has kind of gotten out of your shoes. And because you're going to be in the water, out, in, out, over and over and over for several hours. Yeah, and basically, if the shoe's going like for longer than a couple minutes, it's probably not going to work out. That's a very unscientific method. But yeah, now it's important. We need to dispel the myth of blistered I don't even know how
feet.
this myth even got started.
I don't know, but we hear it all the time. So what we hear all the time is like, how can you run in wet shoes and socks? You don't get blisters? Aren't you worried about blisters? Have you gotten blisters? Like it's always like there's this fear And again,
understandably, I guess
you don't want blisters. I don't want blisters.
Yeah,
but literally, we've never had blisters during a swim run when we're wearing appropriate shoes and socks. So the shoes we already talked about. Kind of doesn't matter what kind of shoe it is. There obviously are some that are more specific for swimmer, and there's even swimmer specific shoes. But in terms of socks, what we recommend is something thin, something light, something that's almost entirely nylon or some sort of synthetic fabric. You don't want cotton because cotton's just going to soak up water.
Yep.
You don't necessarily want wool because wool will get heavy unless it's like a smart wool or some sort of technical fabric. But yeah, essentially a nice thin sock in your shoe. We've never had blisters.
A well-fitting sock. We are particular to the Swiftwick brand. I just like the way they fit. I use them. Again, this is a place you can kind of look what socks are using for running. Because usually if you're using a more performance sock, if you will, for running, that'll be a good thing to have for swim run. But, they have ankle, quarter, mid-shin, and then we have the knee-high ones. And I know Chris has experimented more. You were using the CP brand?
Yeah, I like the CP ones just because I have a little bit more compression, and those are ones that I use for running a lot, but they make a kind of an ultra thin one that I've been using for swim run and like it very much. But yeah, essentially we recommend experimenting for Swiftwick. We have these Spire socks are the ones that we're talking about, and you can check those out on our gear guide that's on our website. But I think the last point on socks is, you can be an ankle, calf, whatever you want. We like the over the calf just because it does provide a little bit of protection from sticks and stuff like that. Swim running is a lot of bushwhacking both on land and in water sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So just a little bit of protection I think can go a long
Always
way.
a log floating in there that's going to, and when you're getting out, again, these aren't like manicured beaches that you're just strolling out like David Hasselhoff. You're scrambling out up banks. I'm remembering back to Swimrun Lake James, it was like there was ropes to pull on. I mean, you got it. You're in it. So check that out. We have all those links in the show notes there, as Chris mentioned. We don't know why you don't get blisters. Our current theory is that because you're not running continually for a long time, you're getting a break on your feet.
Yeah. Well, so blisters are a product of friction.
Yes.
Right. So if you're not running 20 miles in wet shoes, which we never have, you're not going to get blisters.
Yes.
If your socks fit well and you're wearing the right shoes, it doesn't create enough friction to give you blisters. If the shoe doesn't fit well, if it's too tight or something like that, that's more likely to give you a blister than running in a wet sock.
Yeah, for sure. Myth dispelled? Myth busted?
Hopefully.
It's busted.
So a question that we've gotten, and this is something where, again, this is another one where I feel like I'm the cult leader on this, and I'm very happy that I haven't led people astray.
No, yeah.
Is this is the problem I have, but what do you do if you can't swim without earplugs? In swim run, this is problematic because you also have to run and you have to communicate if you're racing with a partner, and having good open communication can be difficult if you can't hear what the person's saying, which Chipper has experienced until I started experimenting.
I thought he was just ignoring me. He was also doing that too.
It's like basically, I just turn down the hearing aid when I don't want to engage. So what I've discovered through trial and error is this brand called Surf Ears. They're pretty pricey. I think last time I checked, they're around $50. They have a lanyard so they don't fall out and you don't lose them. They have a little sort of like a little arm to help them stay placed in your ear.
Like how some earbuds have.
Exactly. And Surf Ears makes a sister product called Swim Ears that's basically the same thing but doesn't have that little arm to kind of stay in your ear. So swim run is probably more akin to surfing than it is to pool swimming, I guess, with waves and things like that. So I recommend the Surf Ears. And essentially what they allow you to do is keeps water out but lets sound in. Simple as that. I'm sure there's a lot of other brands that do that. But Surf Ears haven't led me astray since I started using them.
Yes. And a few data points that we have on this. Our friend John from the Concho Boys, he wasn't willing to spring for the $50 one. He just came in at the Amazon
like
$8 or whatever. He did say they didn't last one race. So just, beware about that.
Right.
Also, what we see a lot is I think the lanyard is kind of one of the things that sets it above is you don't have to worry about it falling out. And from what I've been reading and all the questions that we get is like people are concerned about, obviously, rightfully so, these little plugs are like 1 inch.
People are tying
fall.
strings to their goggles and stuff.
Yeah,
but so that's something I think Brooke from the Swimrun Labs used to do, and now Brooke and Annie both use surf ears, along with a bunch of our listeners that, you know, when they've asked for the recommendation, that's what we've told people. So we're not getting any sort of affiliate from surf.
Hashtag not
probably
sponsored.
should. This is bullshit. We should.
Should get $5.
But yeah, if swimming without earplugs is a problem for you, surf ears is the solution that worked for me.
And Chris this is a problem that he's been trying to solve for a while. He did the wax ones, the little purple ones that kind of fit in there.
That I take out and like put them in between my fingers during runs so we could chat. And then I'd be like, I got to stop because I dropped it somewhere in the last 50 yards.
Yeah. So yes, as I don't have to use the earplugs, but I will also give a glowing recommendation from a partner perspective. Less fidgeting, and he can hear me more than he could with the other ones.
Yes. So speaking of partners, question we get a lot is how do I find a partner?
Yes, and I swim X pace per minute, and I run this pace per minute. That's usually the question that we see. Somebody matchmake me. So the best tip we have is join Envil Coaching, and Nicholas Ramirez will just match you up. That's the joke.
Yeah.
But the advice is we have actually 2 episodes about partners. Episode 4, just called Swimrun 101 Partners. And then we actually did a redux of that episode at episode 111, where we kind of took what we learned over the last 2 years of swim running on a regular basis.
Yeah, and just kind of checked it to see if it was still good. And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, there's definitely some additions there in terms of just being more experienced. But yeah, if you're looking for a partner, those episodes are great resources. If you don't want to listen to it, just check out the show notes. They're pretty detailed for those. But essentially, it's, you should try to find a partner. We think that Swimrun, the essence of the sport is a team sport. There's a lot of solo categories, and if you can't find a partner, definitely do it solo because you're still going to fall in love with it. But if you really want to experience it in the coolest way, I think I think Chipper and I would agree that it's with a partner. So
absolutely,
check out those episodes and look for a partner. And if you're having trouble finding one, you can let us know. You can Odyssey know. You can let Nicholas Ramirez know. He'll find you a partner.
But the quick hits of it though is, one, you don't have to be so concerned if you're the exact pace or even if you're in kind of the ballpark. I think what Chris and I talk about a lot is, are your goals aligned? Are you just looking to go out there and have fun?
Aligned goals is more important than sort of aligned sort of per 100 split.
Yeah, and then if you both are going out there and you want to finish and have a good time at doing the couch to Casco Bay after listening to that episode, who cares if Chris swims 30 seconds faster than me or runs a minute mile faster? We're both out there having fun, and it's going to be fun. 2, go with your sort of training group. If that's at the pool, bring your running shoes and kind of leave them around and see who goes, oh, you run too? And just, entice people a little bit. Yeah. Your triathlon club, obviously going to be a good place to...
Bring in carbon fiber paddles or a giant pool buoy are great conversation starters.
For triathletes, for sure. They'll sniff that carbon fiber out and you're like, what are those? I've never seen this. You're like, they're carbon fiber paddles and you can use them during the race. And you don't have to bring your bike.
Yeah.
That's the sales pitch right there. Carbon fiber paddles, no bike travel.
Works every time.
Sold. And then we have a lot more tips down there in the partners episodes that we mentioned as well.
Yeah. So last question, Chipper.
Yes.
And this was your brainchild, which I think was,
I don't know how we
I think it was your, I really feel like every year you and I are good for like...
I have one good idea.
I think we're good for 5.
5 good ideas.
I think we're good for 5. There's definitely one of them.
Okay.
And this is...
Thank you.
Where can you find, borrow, sell, use swimrun gear?
Yes. So somehow I had this idea. We should make the Swimrun swap meet on Facebook. So it's a closed private group, and you have to fill out a couple questions so we know that you're actually a swim runner, and then you get let in. And everyone just posts their gear that, hey, I got this wetsuit, it doesn't work out, or I wrong size, whatever the situation is, and the gear is in there and it's only swimrun gear. So if you're looking for something, we've seen people post, I'm doing Mackinac Island, I need a wetsuit. we can hook it up. And people have helped out on there. So that's a great place to check out on Facebook. Also, if you are not on Facebook, you can head on over to Strava. We have our club, the Low Tide Boys Club there. So just search Low Tide Boys. And there's like a mini forum within our club page. So you can also post stuff on there, and we can try to help you in there.
Yeah, there's over 400 people in that group, so there's probably a lot of wetsuits hanging around, extra wetsuits and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this is your first sort of foray into the Low Tide Boys, welcome aboard. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We also have a YouTube channel where we have videos about some of the stuff that we talked about, all of our episodes on there.
Yep.
Pull buoy videos, swimrun shoe videos.
Yeah, how to make your pull buoy mount, sort of the in and outs of transition. Ha ha ha. See what I did there? Ha.
Nice.
And yeah, we have a lot of content. We're trying to help everyone get to the starting line as prepared for the adventure as possible. And we hope you found this helpful.
Yeah. And we'll definitely see you out there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swimrun.
Sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swimrun activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
Way
to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run.
Then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then another run.
And then just keep going. Until you're done.
Or maybe can't stop.